Hello students, myself Saurabh Vishwashri, Assistant Professor at Department of Zoology, RD and DJ College, Munger University, Munger. Today in this lecture we will be discussing about the gross nature of the hormones, what are their features, how these hormones are classified and how they are synthesized. So let's have a look what the endocrine system is and how this endocrine system functions, how do we define the endocrine system, and what are the features which has been added recently in the endocrinology and hormones definition. So basically when we talk about endocrinology, endocrine word is derived from two words, that is endon, which means within, and crino, which means to secrete. So these endocrine glands are glandular structure which pour their secretion directly into the bloodstream, and their secretion is called hormones. So basically when we define hormones, we classically define hormones as a chemical substance produced by specialized tissues which is secreted into the blood and then they are carried to the target organ. But the definition of the hormones is restricted to the vertebrate system, because in some cases as an invertebrate system there is the presence of hormones but there is no blood to carry that. Instead of there is different fluid which carries the hormone. So this classical definition of hormone is restricted only to the vertebrate system. So we need to know what are the shortcomings in the definition, and then we will redefine the hormones, how these hormones can be defined in more exact and accurate way. So these hormones are not just synthesized by the vertebrate kingdom, but also by the plants as well as the fungal kingdom. So these are not just restricted to the animal kingdom, but they are also produced in plants and fungi. So when we were classically defining the hormones, we were saying that the chemical substance which gets poured into the bloodstream. But if we look into the exceptions in case of vertebrates, we have parahormones which acts locally. They do not need any blood vessels to reach to their target organ. Simply these parahormones, they diffuse into the extracellular fluid and then reach to their local target organs. So these some of the parahormones acts as autocrine, that means they act on the cells which synthesize them. So these are some of the exceptions where the hormones do not require blood vessels to carry them to the target organ. When we see in case of bacteria, there are alarmones which are modified nucleotides, and their response in when the bacteria undergoes starvation or there is the vitamin deficiency. So these are the exceptions to the definition of hormones, that they always require blood vessels to carry to the target organ. No, they do not require. Moreover, when we look further, you can find that there are some ectohormones, and these hormones include pheromones, which are sexual attractants. Then we have gametes. Then we have alomones. We have carymones. So these hormones generally transfers through water or air, and hence they are not included into the classical definition. So we need to overcome these shortcomings, and then we define the hormones more suitably based on the functional aspects. So we can redefine hormones as a chemical non-nutrient intracellular messenger that is effective at micromolar concentration or less. So this can be a perfect definition of a hormone. So after defining this part of the hormone as a chemical messenger, we have to look how these hormones work and how they are secreted from their glands and how they reach to their target organ. So the first picture we are seeing is that there is an orange colored cell with the nucleus, and throughout this video this orange color cells will be acting as the synthesizing cell, and the blue colored one will be the target cell. So in the first case, when you see that the hormones are secreted by the secreting cells or the granular cells, and they are diffused out, and then they are carried by the blood vessels, or they are directly poured into the blood vessels to reach to their target organ. So this system is the endocrine system. In second case, you can see that the hormones secreted by the cells diffuse to the nearby cells, and the nearby target cell has a receptor for the hormones, and such system is called as paracrine. That means the cells synthesizing the hormone as well as the target cells both are nearby. The target cells has receptor for the hormones, and these hormones directly diffuse through the extracellular space and they reach to their target organ. So the next system which we will be talking about is the juxtacrine system. When we talk about this juxtacrine system, we see that the hormones which are synthesized remains bound to the synthesizing cells or the glandular cells, and even binding to the synthesizing cells, they act on the target cells because the target cells have a receptor for them. And this type of juxtacrine system is generally found in case of immune system, where the immune cells gets mature. Suppose a T cell or B cells is getting mature, so T cells is getting mature, then to mature that T cell, they require such type of juxtacrine signaling system. The next one is the autocrine system. In this autocrine system, the cell which synthesizes the hormone has a self receptor for the hormone, and these hormones secreted by the cells acts on the cells which have synthesized them. So the hormones influence the cell that originally secretes it. So this is a part of either a negative or positive feedback loop. So these are the systems through which the hormones can act. So we can have more system. The next system is the neuroendocrine system. So here, when we look into the neuroendocrine systems, we find that the neurons directly secretes their chemical messengers, which may be GABA, acetylcholine or opioids, which directly gets secreted into the synaptic cleft, and from there it reaches to the target organ. And this is the neuroendocrine system or the neurocrine system. Then we have intracrine system. Intracrine means within the cells, that the hormones synthesized in the cells has a self receptors in the cytoplasm of the cell. They are located within the cells, and when binding to the receptors, they then enter into the nucleus without any degradation, and there they form the biological activity. So this type of signaling is generally associated with CNTF or FGF, that is fibroblast growth factor 1. So these type of signalings are also found, and these are the part of intracrine signaling system. So these are basically some of the systems for the transport of hormones, or the way the hormones act to their target organ. So here you can find that in these systems there was only one endocrine system which need blood vessels to transport the hormones. So in the earlier slide we redefined the hormones, that how hormones are transported. So these are the various relationship between the target hormones secreted by the cells and their target organs. So now coming to the classification, based on the solubility, we classify hormones into two types, that is the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic. So when we take the example of hydrophobic, we generally say that steroids or threonines, they generally belong to the class hydrophobic, and peptides and catecholamines belongs to the class hydrophilic. So how hydrophobic hormones are different from the hydrophilic? So let's have a look. That in hydrophobic case, they do not require any plasma membrane receptors for their transfer to the cell. They directly have a cytoplasm. They enter the cell. They have a cytoplasmic or nuclear receptor. Their mode of mechanism is direct, and they have a half-life which is quite high. Means they have the long half-life which may even extend to hours or days. So these are the hydrophobic hormones. Suppose we are talking about estrogen, then estrogens directly enter into the cell, they bind to the estrogen receptors, and then performs the biological activities. So there is the direct action of mechanism of action, and they do not require membrane receptors. And when we talk about the half-life, we can see when we talk about threonines, they can be in the blood for many days. And these hormones, the hydrophobic hormones, they always require a binding protein for the transport. When we look into the hydrophilic, we have peptides or catecholamines, and these are smaller peptides, or they can be larger peptides. Their half-life is quite short, and they require receptor located on the plasma membrane for their transfer within the cell. So here we can see the major difference between the hydrophobic and hydrophilic is that hydrophobic does not require any plasma membrane transport system mechanism. They have direct receptors in cytoplasm or nucleus, but hydrophilic hormones requires the receptor on the plasma membrane. So these are some basic difference between the hydrophobic hormones and the hydrophilic hormones on which they have been classified. Then when we talk about the nature, then we have 4 types of hormones. The hormones can be peptide, it can be catecholamines, it can be steroid hormones, or it can be iodothreonines. So let's have a look one by one that what is peptide hormone, how they are synthesized, and how they are transported into the to the target organ. So when we look about into the peptide hormones, they are the most abundant and they are most versatile, and their size ranges from small tripeptide, such as, for example, it is TRH or 2,198 amino acid prolactin, and it can be consisting of multiple subunits. So peptide hormones can be a simple tripeptide, 198 amino acid long chain of prolactin, or it can have multiple subunits and the glycosylation also, as in case of human chronic gonadotropins. So they are versatile, they are most abundant, and their size ranges from smaller peptides to heavier molecules. So when we look into the peptide hormones, we should know about the synthesis, that how these peptide hormones are synthesized. So you can see on the upper side of the diagram, the translation process on mRNA is going on, and there is the synthesis of the peptide. So when the peptide is formed, the peptide consists of the signal peptide, and before the signal peptide transfer it to the endoplasmic reticulum, there is a 7S RNA which acts as a translational arrest. So as soon as 7S RNA, which is shown in the red color, binds to the growing polypeptide chain, the translation is arrested, and the signal peptide that is present in the polypeptide chain, which is demarcated as maroon color, then transfers this polypeptide chain to the endoplasmic reticulum. So on the left side it is written plasma membrane of endoplasmic reticulum. So the peptide, signal peptide, is removed on the outer side of the plasma membrane of ER, and then the polypeptide enters into the endoplasmic reticulum. So in the endoplasmic reticulum, the peptides gets modified or gets cleaved, and then they form what is known as pre-hormone, or it may directly be the hormone. So if this is a pre-hormone, this pre-hormone enters into the Golgi apparatus where the cleavage takes place and to form the hormone. If not Golgi, then we have membrane-bound secretory vesicles where these hormones are stored, and even in the case of even in membrane-bound secretory vesicle, there is cleavage of pre-hormone to form the hormone. So the formation of pre-hormone to hormone can take place either in Golgi apparatus as well as in the membrane-bound secretory vesicle. So these three organelles, the endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, and the secretory vesicles, are responsible for conversion of polypeptide chain to hormone or the pre-hormone to the final active hormone. And within these three organelles, there is post-translational modifications which can take place either in ER, that is endoplasmic reticulum, or the Golgi apparatus, or in the secretory vesicles. So now these hormones, when they are converted from pre-hormone to hormone, are stored in membrane-bound secretory vesicles. When they receive stimulus, the hormone is released by the process of exocytosis. So we should look into how this exocytosis process takes place. So when we look into the process of exocytosis, we see that the vesicles, the transport vesicle with hormone, has protein called as V-snare, which is demarcated as tick mark with green color. It has a small RAP GTP, which has docking proteins. So when we talk about regulated exocytosis, it is induced by elevation of intracellular calcium level and activation of other components, small G proteins, which interacts with snare associated proteins and synaptoglycans. So here you see in the diagram that the transport vesicles with hormones have V-snare, while you can see that the green color is the plasma membrane, cell plasma membrane, which is green in color. It has got syntaxin, and within the syntaxin it has two proteins, that is the T-snare and the SNAP25. So you can see here that T-snare and SNAP25 are not associated with each other, and this is the normal case. In the first diagram, it is the normal case that the transport vesicle with hormones are located, and as well this is the plasma. So the next step will be that the transport vesicle with hormone will fuse with the plasma membrane of the cell. So for doing so, the transport vesicle, what happens that the V-snare present in the transport vesicle with hormone get attached or get associated with the T-snare and the SNAP25. So all the three proteins, the V-snare, T-snare and the SNAP25, that binds together to bring the transport vesicle with hormone closer to the plasma membrane, and the plasma membrane have some docking proteins also which keeps them bound, and here the fibrous threatening proteins projection from the plasma membrane of the cell also adheres the transport vesicle with the hormone. So if these proteins V-snare, T-snare and the SNAP25, that helps the transport vesicle with hormone to come closer to bind to the plasma membrane. So once this binds to the plasma membrane, it gets fused to the plasma membrane. So here in the diagram you can see that once they have bound, here the fusion has taken place. This green color is of the plasma membrane, is the plasma membrane, and this yellowish color structure is the vesicle with the hormone. So now these have fused and the hormone has been released by the process of exocytosis. So now the vesicular content has been discharged. Now once this has been done, the hormones has been released, the conformation of T-snare and SNAP25 has to be released, or they have to be dissociated. So for the dissociation of T-snare and SNAP25, ATP, this process is catalyzed by the conversion of ATP to ADP plus PI, and this drives the dissociation of snare complex, that is the T-snare and the SNAP25, and now it again gets ready for the another round of vesicle fusion. So this is all the process by which the hormones, peptide hormones are synthesized, then they are stored in the secretory vesicles, and then they fuse with the membrane, and then after fusing with the membrane they get discharged by the process of exocytosis, and then finally the proteins responsible for their association with the plasma membrane gets dissociated in the presence of ATP. So this is all the process of protein formation, peptide hormones formation, and their activation, their conversion to active form, and finally how they get out of the cell and they are discharged from the cell by the process of exocytosis, and then how next round of vesicular transport takes place. So this is all about it. Beyond this, we have certain other properties of the peptide hormones. So when we look into peptide or protein hormones, there are some other properties. So let's have a look on that. So we have here that the protein or peptide hormones are soluble in aqueous solvent. That is true, and except there are some exceptions, and these exceptions includes IGF, that is the insulin-like growth factors, and the growth hormone. Second property of the peptide or protein hormones are that they are short-lived. Their half-lives are shorter, and these protein hormones are generally removed by endocytosis or lysosomal turnover of hormone receptor complexes. So most of the protein hormones are small enough to appear in the urine. So if we give an example, it is the follicular stimulating hormone FSH and the luteinizing hormone, that is the LH, which can be present in the urine. And these peptide or protein hormones are readily digested when administered orally. If you take the oral peptide or protein hormone, they will get digested by the digestive system. So when we want to inject that system, we have to do it either sublingually or intranasally. Now when I was talking about the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic classification, I told that these peptide hormones needs signal through the transmembrane receptor, means they should have a receptor on the plasma membrane. When we will look into the mechanism of action, we will be talking about the receptors. I will let you know how this peptide hormones gets transported, gets signaled, that release signals through the transmembrane receptors. So this is all about the peptide or the protein hormones. Now we will look into the catecholamines, that what are the catecholamines. So basically when we talk about the catecholamines, we have or when we talk about serotonin or histamine, we have the amino acids which are enzymatically modified. So when we talk about catecholamines, this is synthesized by adrenal medulla and neurons, and includes norepinephrine, epinephrine, and dopamine. So when we talk about catecholamine, they are the tyrosine derivatives, and similar to the peptide or the protein hormones, they are stored in the membrane-bound secretory vesicles, and their regulation of secretion is through exocytosis, similar to protein hormones or the peptide hormones, and through the regulation of enzymatic pathways required for the synthesis. They are transported in the blood freely or loosely associated with the proteins, and often administered as aerosol puff for opening bronchioles. Several specific analogs can be taken orally, and they are hydrophilic, and the signals through the transmembrane G protein coupled receptors called as adrenergic receptors. So this is the basically about all about the protein hormones and the catecholamines or the amino acid precursor, which are synthesized by the from the amino acid precursors. So we have talked about the two type of hormones, based on the nature. In my next lecture, I will be talking about the steroid hormones, that and iodothionines, that how they are synthesized, how they act. So till then, stay at home, stay safe.